The UK motor insurance market is the most competitive insurance market in the world. Hooray, we won something. Unfortunately, it's making our life really difficult. But there's more than 130 brands in the motor insurance world. Often, many brands run by just one insurance company. But when that's not what the competitors see, that's not what the customer sees. The customer sees a huge amount of choice out there. Young drivers often pay several £1,000s for their car insurance. Now that's often a bit of a shock to some people like me because it's not the same as it was 20, 30 years ago. It's a different environment. So for young people, their car insurance is probably the most expensive purchase they've ever made in their life and probably, swamps anything they'll make for several years hence. Fraud is a really significant factor in this industry. So fraud costs the UK motor insurance. There's different estimates out there, 1 billion, 2 billion, 3 billion. You see these different estimates out there. What is known is that it has a very significant impact on each and every consumer. So whether it's £50 or £100 on everybody's car insurance in the country, it's of that kind of magnitude. On top of that, a lot of the fraud is going into some pretty unsavoury places. So a lot of the fraud in the motor insurance market, it's not just somebody going, oh, the creak in my neck is slightly worse than I thought it was. It's actually organised fraud gangs, and that money's being channelled into maybe terrorism, maybe drugs. It's a real systemic problem with our society today. In this country, we have unlimited liability in UK motor insurance. That's not the same all around the world, and that's one of the reasons why the UK car insurance looks like it does. So in some other countries, if you have a very significant impact, the price tag for that might be picked up by the company you work for or something like that. In this country, everything is paid by the UK car insurer. That's your insurer, and that means we have some huge claims. So it's very common to have 1, 2, 3, 10 million pound claims, especially within young drivers. And I put up the Selby train crash there because that's the largest one we've had to date. So if you all remember the Selby train crash, that was the guy who very sadly fell asleep at the wheel, took him down onto a train track and the train was derailed. Luckily it wasn't a passenger train, or there might have been a lot more fatalities. But as it was, it was a €52 million claim, and that's all entirely picked up by the insurer and the reinsurers. On top of that, we have the gender ruling which came in. So within insurance, knowledge is power. So data is everything. That is what allows you to control the risk. And in December 2013, the EU ruled that the UK motor market was no longer allowed to use gender as a rating factor. Allowed to use it to market, but not to price. That's very key, because for young drivers, that was the only risk factor we have. When you're 17, you look the same as every other 17-year-old out there. You've got no claims history, you've got no NCD, you've got no convictions, we hope, but everybody has to be in full-time education, everybody lives at home with their parents, everybody drives the same rubbish car, which is the only car they could possibly afford. And so, to actuaries, pricing actuaries, a bit like I used to be, everybody looks the same. And the only risk factor that you had was gender, because 17-year-old boys cost twice as much as 17-year-old girls on average. And when you lose that, suddenly you've lost an awful lot of your risk control, and therefore that makes that market even more terrifying than it was previously to people who worry about risk. And a lot of the brands in that market pulled away. So that's the context of the UK motor market. On top of this, I'm going to talk about young expectations. So this was another key factor that came together to bring Insure the box to the position where it is today. So young people are used to a very different sort of experience to a lot of many of the people in this room were used to growing up. So they're used to these real tailored data-rich experiences. They're used to buying on Amazon and getting recommendations. They're used to searching on Google. There's none of this going to the library and going through different cards to look for what you want for. When you put in some search terms, it's suggesting other things that also might be relevant for you. They're used to things being very tailored for them. I've also put Wikipedia up there for the same reason. When you search for something, it's giving you other suggestions of where to go for. All the time, the information that you're giving out there is giving back to you. It's not a one-way process, it's a two-way process.